we play a game?
Why, yes. I believe we shall.
Oh, I got a live one here.
Welcome. Shane Plays Radio, Geek Talk Radio, live from Little Rock. It is a journey into the things we love. Zach is in there freaking out. I'm waiting on the Keurig to brew my coffee. The show intro's going. Zach's yelling down the hallway. I know how long the intro goes. It's like in the movies when the file's trying to download and you're watching the progress bar and the bad guys are coming and it's all tense. I'm watching that Keurig brew my coffee. Man, I had to have some coffee, Zach. It's nasty and yucky outside. I made some coffee and forgot to bring it in with me. Anyway, I'm Shane Stacks, your host of Shane Plays Geek Talk Radio, a journey into the things we love. Thanks so much for listening, whether you're listening on 96.5 FM out of Little Rock or online at the 96.5 FM theanswer.com website, or if you're listening delayed via the podcast or on Krypton Radio. KryptonRadio.com is SciFi for your Wi-Fi. I appreciate you being with us so much. We've got a great show today, including Neal and Jana Hallford from Swords and Circuitry Studios. Neal's been on the show before. He's a heck of a lot of fun. This will be the first time I get the pleasure of talking with his wife, but they've got an award-winning short film called The Case of Evil that we're going to be talking about later today. Before that, let me give the sort of housekeeping notes, and then we'll also do a news segment. And then after the break, we'll go in and talk more about The Case of Evil, which is very creative and very cool. I'm very glad to have Neal and Jana on. So don't forget that the show, as I mentioned previously, does go out as a podcast after the show, usually 2 or 3 days after. I had a lot of stuff going on last weekend, so it took me, I think, until Tuesday to get the show out. But it'll usually go out Sunday or Monday. And you can find that on the blog at shaneplays.com, on iTunes and Stitcher and other fine podcast directories. I also put it up on YouTube, youtube.com/GoShanePlays. And I put a lot of videos. I put Let's Play videos. I put reviews. I put the podcast. I put all kinds of stuff out there. So make sure to follow the YouTube channel. And don't forget right now at shaneplays.com, ShanePlays.com, you can go right now and find a post up with the show notes. So as I'm talking about the news or I'm talking about The Case of Evil, then there's links there to help you find out more, or if you missed something I said and want to know more. So with all that being said, Zach, let's bring our guests on. Neal and Jana, are you with me?
Yes, we are.
Yay! Hello. Hi, Jana. Am I saying that right? Is it Jana?
It's Jana.
Jana. Okay. Jana. So welcome, Jana and Neal. Neal, of course, I've talked to you before. You're a heck of a lot of fun, and Jana must be a unique woman.
She's tolerant.
Okay. Well, I know that being with Neal is an adventure, and it's fun a lot of times. It has to be. I can't imagine that it's not. So thanks so much for being on the show. We will be talking about your short film during the interview portion of the show. Before that, I just thought it'd be fun for you guys to hang out during my news segment. Feel free to banter if you want to.
Absolutely.
But we're going to go ahead and dig on into that so we can get through that and then get to the Case of Evil, which I love the name of your movie because it's actually a play on words. Because most people are expecting, we'll just get into that later. I played the trailer for Dave Ellswick, who's a big movie buff, and he's a radio host around here, and he does a classic movie every month in a local theater. And he was like, "Oh, I was expecting, So you guys, I love that. I love the pun that the title is. But anyway, let's get the news. Zach, turn on the microphone in the newsroom. Let's see if they're working. Oh, what the? You're all. They're working Saturday. Man, they're in there working. Zach's all flustered because I ran into the last second with my coffee. He's all flustered. He's like, no, it was all slow motion. All right, so the news team's working hard. Don't forget that for every dollar of support that we get via Patreon at patreon.com/ShanePlays, this show is supported by both sponsors and the community. And I'm thankful to have everybody, sponsors and individuals, that support the show. But for every dollar of support, that we get via patreon.com, then the newsroom gets a penny an hour raise. So don't forget that. And they are hard work. It's Saturday. They're in there working. So the first news story I have here, it's actually a local story, and it involves one of our sponsors, Michael Tierney, who owns the comic book store in North Little Rock, the comic book store in Little Rock on Treasure Hill Road, and Collector's Edition Comics on JFK in North Little Rock. It's in retrospect, now that everything's okay, it's an interesting story, but I don't want to belittle the seriousness of it at the time. So this showed up on Comic Book Resources, but they got the news story from our local newspaper, the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. A man earlier in the week went into the comic book store and I'm not laughing. It's just ludicrous. Okay. I'm not glad that this happened. It's not entertaining in that, because the employee involved was very intimidated and very scared. Went in, walked around, acted a little fishy, and then walked up and said, "I'm sorry to do this." And he kind of patted his belt or under his jacket and said, "I have a gun and I need magic cards for my son's birthday." And so he didn't go in to rob money. He didn't go in to rob he wanted magic cards. And I mean, Neal and Jana, y'all know, Magic the Gathering, the card game.
Oh, well, we played it.
Yeah. So he went in wanting magic cards. Now, here's a hint for anybody listening. One of the things in the police report was that he had bad teeth. Okay, so he's probably not the most clear-thinking person in the world. If you know, that's one of the symptoms of, I think, crystal meth, or crack. I don't know. I mean, I know when they finally found him, he did have drug paraphernalia on him. But anyway, so the employee said sure, and like tried to offer magic cards, and he said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I've never done anything. I'm really sorry." And without taking the cards, he ran out the door and said, "Don't call the police," and took off. And so Michael wisely, because the employee was, I think they were discussing, and Michael's like, "No, we don't know what this guy might do to somebody else." So they called the police, and he was caught the next day. So I guess the uniqueness of the fact that he wanted magic cards so the story kind of had legs, no pun intended, since he ran off. But I want to say that, one, it's interesting. Why would you rob a store just for magic cards? And then two, I'm glad that he was caught and nobody was hurt. So I know the employees at both stores, and I'm so glad nobody was hurt.
How much are magic cards?
Man, they can be worth a lot. Now, there's magic cards out there from 20 years ago that are worth $1,000. But what he was saying was, just give me a deck of cards.
Yeah.
And if you get a deck of brand new cards, they're probably not going to be worth a whole lot. So anyway, that's crazy. So any insider thoughts on that there, Neal or Jana?
Well, I probably boils down to, he says, I didn't actually want a booster pack. I wanted an exclusive Comic-Con card from.
Right.
I don't think he was that clear thinking. I like that. I don't think he was. It's sad in a way, because he, in his own misguided way, he was trying to do something for his son, but obviously that's not the way to do it.
It's so weird. Yeah, it's so strange. And then he's like, "Please don't call police." But of course you have to, because you don't know what he may do to somebody else.
Exactly. Well, exactly.
Yeah. Now, I forgot to let people know, I'm going to thank Cassie Parks for reminding me, this show is interactive. That's one of the reasons I do it as live talk radio. And you can call in at 501-823-0965, whether you're local or listening online. And also you can tweet me at Shane Plays, ShanePlays. And Cassie Parks, who is in England and does many things, and including for writing for PixelDynamo.com. She was tweeting me last week, and for some reason I wasn't getting them. But this week she says, she goes, "Hey, Shane Plays. Hey, I have bad teeth, but I'm British. So ... And it's like, dun-dun-dun. I lived in England, and I didn't see a lot of bad teeth. That's all I'm going to say. I know it's the funny stereotype, and Austin Powers played it for laughs. But I dare say that I suspect you don't have bad teeth, Cassie. So, but thanks for the thanks for lightening the tone, because that's a pretty serious news story. I want to say again that I'm glad to have Michael and his comic book stores as a sponsor, and I'm really super glad that the employee is okay. And I know the employee that it happened to. I'm not going to give out their name because it sounded like they're like, "I just want this to all be over with." So, all right, getting on to the more fun, geeky stuff. Have you guys seen the new Captain America Civil War trailer?
I haven't seen the one. There was one that was released a day or two ago, and I haven't seen that one yet. So I'm behind my times. I'm sorry.
All right.
Same here. I need to get caught up.
Well, Zach is in there nodding his head. You know, people like, they release trailers these days and people act like everyone's a masterpiece and everybody gets all excited. This one's actually pretty cool.
Yes, it was.
It gives more scenes from the new Captain America Civil War movie, which has got the superheroes forming sides behind either Iron Man or Captain America. And it's basically safety versus liberty, which is the theme that came out of the comic book series this is based on. And it shows a lot more action sequences, gives you more of an idea of who's on what side. But what's really cool at the end, Spider-Man shows up.
Yes.
So you get to see Spider-Man, who's only been in the Sony movies. Well, they worked out a deal where he can be in a Warner Brothers movie, and he looks good.
Yeah.
And my favorite part, you know how like Neal and Jana, you know how Iron Man in the movies always has like a cute nickname for it? Like he calls Loki Reindeer Games and calls Thor Goldilocks. Well, he calls Spider-Man Underoos. So I love that. So
That sounds very Iron Man.
I love the way he came in the end and just say, "Hi, guys."
Yeah, he's like, "Hi, guys." Yeah, he takes. Well, just in case people haven't seen it, I want the link is on Shane Plays, and just go search YouTube for the Captain America 2 trailer. It's big news. But Iron Man, he's on Team Iron Man, and he's sort of the ace up Tony Stark's sleeve, and he goes, "Okay, if that's how it's going to be, Underoos," and that's the code word for Spider-Man to roll in. So it was classic. I really liked it. Best use. It should get an Oscar. And Jana and Neal, you guys make movies. So tell me if you agree with this. It should get an Oscar for the best use of Underoos in a superhero in a superhero movie.
Underoos. I don't even know what that means.
Underoos was Neal, tell this young man what Underoos were.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so there was a time and place back whenever the world was young. Whenever you could get a special underwear that was made for kids, and it often was like for superhero themed stuff. So you get Spider-Man or Superman or whatever. And I mean, they came with the little feet and everything. And so, of course, the hysterical thing is apparently now they're making underoos for adults.
Yeah,
and
I saw that.
I have some history on that because I remember, people writing in and asking. One of my friends wrote in and asked when they were going to make adult underoos. And they got a very nice letter back that they were very proud of from the Underoos company, saying they had received many requests but had no current plans to do it. So when they changed that later, I was glad. Because,
you were glad?
Yeah, I mean, if somebody wants to go around in Superman underwear, that's nice that Underoos can make that possible.
Thundercats.
You want something? They had Underoos for everything. And, I mean, every kid of my generation, for the most part, at one time or another, ran into their bedroom, put on the underoos of whatever character it was, and then ran back in the living room pretending to be that character.
Nothing's wrong with that.
Nothing.
Nothing. No.
Nothing. Regardless of your age. Now, what you guys don't know is I know Zach, and he's going to go out and buy some. He's going to get some Batman or Black Panther. I know he's pointing at me like, yep. All right, anyway. So, all right, moving on. I've got several Geek TV news updates. We're going to plow through these really quickly. Because I do want to make sure to give plenty of time to talk about the Case of Evil. So I'm just going to kind of summarize these. But if anybody, Jana, Neal, Zach, if you have anything you want to add, if anybody's on Twitter land, you can tweet me at Shane Plays About It. You can call in at 501-823-0965. Several Geek TV news items. And Geek TV is big right now. Anybody who's even halfway paying attention to TV can tell that. Supergirl has been renewed for a second season. And the more I watch that with my wife, the more I like it. I started watching it just for something to do with the lovely Sheila. And, it's so it sounds like you're watching it, Neal. Are you watching it, Jana? Some. Okay. The most recent Brainiac episode was great. I mean, it was, very good. So people, I told somebody the other day it's a perfect episode to go watch because it's heavier on the action and they minimize the sort of, 20-something relationship issues a little bit. So it's a great episode to jump on with, in my opinion. All right. Luke Cage, a.k.a. Power Man, is going to be premiering on Netflix September 30th. Now, he was in the Jessica Jones series that was just on, but now he's getting his own show. And Daredevil is, of course, returning March 18th on Netflix, and that's going to have Elektra and the Punisher in it. So that's going to be really cool.
Yes, it will.
Yep. Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is renewed for a fourth season, and the mid-season of season 3 just kicked back up. So do y'all watch that, Neal or Jana? Do y'all watch it? Yeah. I like it a lot. The second season I was kind of but I love the first season. I'm enjoying the third season. And now here's CW has renewed The Flash, Arrow, DC's Legends of Tomorrow, and iZombie have all been renewed. And DC's Legends of Tomorrow is really starting to pull together as a pretty tight show.
Okay.
Yeah. Have y'all been watching that, Neal?
Yeah, we were watching it. Whenever it first came out, I wasn't as wild about it because it felt kind of like they were trying to rip off Doctor Who, but doing it kind of a low rent way.
Right.
But I'm starting to like it a little bit more now that they've kind of starting to figure out what they are.
Right. It's taken a while to pull together, but it's
I agree.
The first couple of episodes were a little loose, but it's really pulling together. And now there's one episode I haven't seen yet where they're in the 1950s, but the episode before that where there's a big dynamic between Captain Cold and Heatwave, very, very interesting. I didn't see any of that coming. So, and it's interesting that, they definitely could be ripping off Doctor Who because they got one of the main companions from Doctor Who playing Rip Hunter. Well, but anyway.
That's the hysterical things because they keep on talking about Rory, which of course was the name of Arthur Darvill's character on Doctor Who.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't even catch that. So very good catch. Okay, and then I got 2 more items here on news. DC Comics has a comic book called Scalped, and it's going to be being adapted into a TV series. And I guess it tells like a modern day investigation on an Indian reservation or a Native American reservation. So I don't know much more about that than that. And then I have a suspicion that Neal and Jana were going to like this news. The Tick is going to be returning with an Amazon pilot order. Yay! Now it doesn't have, is it Patrick Warburton? I can't remember his name off the top of my head. The guy that played the Tick in the live action TV series and was Putty on Seinfeld. Is it Patrick Warburton?
What is the Tick?
The Tick?
I have no clue.
Sit down at my campfire, young one. Neal, sit down at Neal and Jana's camp. Neal, tell this young man who the Tick is.
I was a big fan.
Well, Jana could tell even better than I was.
I was a big fan of the original series. It was a wonderful comic book series more than 20 years ago, and it was just a great spoof of superheroes in general, and also really great comic book art too. So anyway, I was just a huge fan of that, and some of the most creative villains as far as names and how they looked.
And it was also a great animated series.
Yeah, it was.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, the original.
The animated series
was
good.
Well, the original comic book series was great. Loved it. It made Spoon into a battle cry. Yes. Spoon. Yeah. And then the animated cartoon was great. The TV series, I watched a little bit of it. It was done really well. I'm surprised it didn't do any better than it did. But it's basically, Zach, this guy who has like super strength and invulnerability, but he's not the sharpest stick in the drawer, and he wears a giant blue tick outfit with antennas. And okay, I know what you're talking about now.
His sidekick is Arthur, an accountant who dresses. He's supposed to be a moth, but a lot of people think he's just in a bunny suit because he usually keeps the wings in their vehicle in the trunk. But it was a really, really funny series, and you kind of had to have known something about comics to see all the parody in it. But it was quite wonderful, and a lot of wit to it.
A lot of wit, definitely, and it's stuff like Arthur's apartment is their secret headquarters, just because they're broke, just stuff like that. But anyway, I wish I had more time to spend on TV. Cassie Parks tweeted again and said, "My teeth have worn down to stumps." No, they haven't, Cassie. Also, there's too much good TV out soon, and I have so many essays to do. It is a problem. It's hard to keep up with all the good TV out there today. But you have to have priorities, Cassie. What's really going to matter 20 years from now? These essays or the Tick? Come on. Priorities, Cassie. All right. Couple more quick news items, and then we're going to wrap. For the tabletop RPG folks out there, I did a review of the new Curse of Strahd adventure from D&D, which is a retelling and expansion upon the classic Ravenloft module from the 80s, which is considered one of the best and most classic modules from D&D, period. And you can go to shaneplays.com and find that. There's both a written review with a photo gallery on my blog, and there's also a video version on YouTube. And along with that, Ravenloft, for those that are aware of the DMs Guild, where Wizards of the Coast allows you to publish content using their IP in a revenue sharing deal, Ravenloft as a setting is now allowed in the DMs Guild, in addition to Forgotten Realms, now that D&D Curse of Strahd is out. And finally, this last news item is probably right up Neal's alley. There's from YouTube user 90s Gamer 92. I watched about a week ago. It just came out. He edited a 2-hour video telling the history of Dungeons and Dragons video games. And you can tell a lot of time and effort went into editing this together. And he even says, I couldn't put everything in there because it would just keep going and going and going. But if you're into computer role-playing games at all, I definitely, recommend going and checking this out. And he also talks about how the incredibly strong connection between D&D as a tabletop game and video games in general. The DNA that got into video games in general. Now, Jana, I don't know if you play a lot of games or not, so I'm not trying to leave you out of this conversation, but I do know that Neal was the writer and designer on one of the most popular computer role-playing games of all time, Betrayal at Krondor. So, if you want to just speak to the topic of, D&D or role-playing in video games quickly, Neal, I would welcome you to do that.
Well, yeah, of course, Dungeons and Dragons, I'm like everybody else. I started off with the white box, so before it was advanced, before all those other good stuff, I started off whenever it was still the box, and you're dealing with gelatinous cubes where you're major villains and
right.
and all that good stuff. And so, but I love D&D. It was obviously a kind of big stepping stone for me, kind of later getting into doing games of my own. I have to admit, though, that my favorite system is actually Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah.
And I'm really jazzed by the fact that there's been an announcement over the last 2 weeks is there are 2 Call of Cthulhu games apparently in the pipeline getting ready to come out.
Well,
there's video games.
Yeah, there's at least one that I know of. Also, is it Sandy Peterson? He's doing a Kickstarter to do the Cthulhu Mythos monsters for Pathfinder role-playing game. So, I mean, I actually had to cut that from the news items because I had so many news items. Mm-hmm. But anyway, yeah, maybe we can have another, show just talking about that. We'll Call of Cthulhu maybe when it gets closer for those games to come out. Sure. But I just want people go check out. The link is on shaneplays.com on the show notes. Look for YouTube user 90s Gamer 92. And he's got a great, if you're interested in the subject even remotely at all, I recommend you go watch his video. We're going to cut to a break so that we can go ahead and talk about the Case of Evil. Before I do that, I'm going to give one of my sponsors some love. Then we'll hit a break. When we come back, we'll be talking the Case of Evil with Neal and Jana Hallford of Swords and Circuitry Studios. River City Comic Expo. Shane Plays welcomes the River City Comic Expo as a sponsor June 11th and 12th at the State House Convention Center in Little Rock. The RCCE is Arkansas's largest comic toy game cosplay convention and now features the Little Rock Picture Show. Also want to let people know I'm working with Game Goblins, who's another sponsor, to do some organized role-playing gameplay. Maybe we could do some Call of Cthulhu there, Neal. You never know. Guests include Neal Adams, Mike Zeck, James O'Barr, Larry Hama, Michael Golden, and Arkansas's own Mitch and Elizabeth Brightweiser, John Lucas, and Dusty Higgins. You'll find booth after booth with artists and dealers representing comics, toys, books, movies, games, and so much more. Come on out to the River City Comic Expo, June 11th and 12th at the State House Convention Center in Little Rock. RiverCityComicExpo.com.
Megawars.net. The classic online space strategy game has returned, bigger and better than ever before. Scout the universe and claim your empire. Construct, customize, and launch dozens of different starships. Battle thousands of opponents online in a team-based competition leading to the ultimate battle of the galaxies. Grab your slot today in one of the most hotly anticipated indie games of 2015. Visit Megawars.net and get options only available during our pre-sale event running now. Megawars.net.
The die is cast.
Plunge into worlds of fantastic adventure where dragons lie and the undead stalk the shades of your mind's imagines. where creatures of legend plunder wealth through the horror of their passage. Monsters grim and foul hold the ecstasy of gold and the renown of glory. All this and more awaits you and your friends in the unlimited, fantastic world of the Castles and Crusades role-playing game from Trollord Games. Visit your friendly local game store or Trollord.com to get your copy today. A rules-light, adaptable game that has stood the test of time. 12 years in constant publication with no new additions, Castles and Crusades is the original, easy-to-play attribute check system. Join us and unleash your imagination. Visit your friendly local game store or Trollord.com to get your copy of Castles and Crusades today. Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/Shane Plays.
Who truly knew what was in that case would come so far, willing to pay so much.
Its name is Staggerly.
And that wasn't a classic Universal horror movie from the 30s or 40s. That was The Case of Evil. That's the trailer from The Case of Evil from Sword and Circuitry Studios, Neal and Jana Hallford. And that is, it's an award-winning short film that's making the rounds on the festival circuit. I'm pleased to be joined by Neal and Jana to talk about it. They made the movie. And it just looks so cool. So, Neal and Jana, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what you do and the movie?
Sure. Jana and I have a independent film company that's down here in San Diego, California, and the Case of Evil is actually our first short that we put out there. We've actually done some other stuff, a documentary about Star Trek that we've been working on for the past several years called The Con of Wrath, with Larry Nemechek, who worked on the Star Trek companion and everything. But The Case of Evil was our first shot at trying to do a short, because
a dramatic short.
A dramatic short. And so anyway, it was kind of based on an earlier project we'd worked on, which was a kind of a web series that we'd been working on, but we realized that it was going to be a little too ambitious for our budget and given some of the other constraints that we had. And so 2 years ago, whenever I'd kind of gotten a challenge from a local director of a film festival called Horrible Imaginings here in town, he had said, "Okay, Neal, you owe me a film. You've been you've been active here in the town, but we have this festival here in town, and I want something from you." And so in 2014, we got together with a group of some really fabulous actors here in town and some of my awesome cast and crew people that I know here in town, and we put together The Case of Evil. And really gratified that it came out as well as it did. And so just sort of the high-level pitch for it is that we approached it as if we were shooting a horror movie that had been shot in the 1940s, not just set in the 1940s, but we tried to approach it as if we were a B film unit working for Universal and shooting something to go alongside Dracula and Wolfman and all that kind of stuff.
Well, you achieved your goal. Oh, go ahead, Jana.
I was just going to say, so as Neal was saying, we have a wonderful crew as well as cast, and the people behind the scenes really bought into it, like Francia, our makeup artist, She really knows her stuff, and she did the makeup, including the special effects makeup, using what people would have used back during the Universal Horror Classic era. You know, there were modern things she could have used, but she did it old school to help get that effect. And I know Neal was very careful about everything, including the audio, to make sure that it matched, because we had noticed at film festivals and such that often when people try to make a retro-look film, they just think if they film it in black and white and maybe have reasonably period costumes, that'll do the job. But sound, lighting, a lot of things were different back then.
Dialogue.
And the dialogue, yes. And we knew when we put it together that probably some people, it starts out a little slow. The credits are all up front. We tried to match the way things would have been done back then. And luckily, people that like old movies get it. So that's worked for us.
Well, good. So, yeah, I was I'm a periodic guest of the Dave Ellswick show out of Little Rock. He's been in radio. He's very well known around here. He's been on radio about 20 years, and he brings me on a lot because I can talk politics and kind of geeky stuff. So yesterday we talked politics, and then the last part of the show we went into geeky stuff, and we were talking about I was having y'all on today, and I pulled up the trailer on my laptop and showed it to him, and he goes, no, this is a Universal horror movie. And he's like, oh, and he's so, you nailed it, and he's like, oh, they've got the gypsy, and he was, really getting into it. So, you definitely nailed it. If people need to go, the link is on the shaneplays.com at the show notes. Also just search for the Case of Evil trailer. You can go to Swords and Sir. You guys, if you want, give out the links where you want people to find this at. But if you watch the trailer, it's you nailed it. It's exactly like a Universal horror movie. Now, how long is the movie? How long is it?
The movie's about 11 minutes.
Just
it's 10 minutes and cents, but it's about 11 minutes.
Okay. How long did it take to actually from beginning to, because once you do, and I'm going to sound like I know what I'm talking about here, but I don't. Once you do principal photography, there's a whole lot of editing and this and that. How long did the whole thing take to do?
The whole thing, it was about a month and a half between whenever we shot it, edited it, and we had a final a version of the music. And so some of that was some of that we were kind of up against a deadline because we knew Miguel and he had made a request from us. He actually let us send to submit a cut without final music, and he accepted it based on just what we had with the stand-in music that we had.
Okay.
But the version that actually showed in the film festival had the final music because there was about 2 months between his final acceptance date and whenever the festival actually was. But in terms of the content and everything else, it was about a month and a half. But so it was 3 days of filming, and then 2 or 3 weeks of in post, and then, like I say, the rest of the time was actually coordinating our soundtrack, which I wanted to actually give props to our music people because Carvin Knowles, who is an old buddy of mine, he grew up with me in the same town in Sand Springs, Oklahoma. And we both went together. I went to the University of Oklahoma. But whenever I had first started talking about doing the soundtrack for it, I said I need a theremin for it. And so I was talking around to various
Now, let me interrupt you there just real quick. Is the theremin that instrument that you kind of wave your fingers around it and it makes interesting sounds? Okay. And
yes.
Okay.
If you listen to any old horror or science fiction films between the 1930s and the 1960s, there's almost always a theremin in there. And I said, we have to have it because it's just one of those things. Another aspect of being period is we need to have a theremin. And so I was asking my friends, who had one, who could play one. And my buddy Carvin kind of pinged me and said, hey, I would love to do this. And so originally I was going to do what they had done back in the day, which was they just go get they didn't score movies against the picture. A lot of times it was a case of they would go get a piece of classical music and they would just record it in time to the film.
Oh, I see.
And so that was true with a lot of the old horror movies. You're going to hear, if you go back and you watch The Wolfman and some of these other films, it's Swan Lake.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I told you that. Yeah, and for the people that don't, the people that don't know, scoring is actually where, like the classic thing you see in a lot of recently over the past few years is you'll see John Williams when he's scoring the Star Wars movies. He's got the orchestra, he's composed the music, and as the film is playing, they're watching the film on a big screen, and they're literally scoring the sound, as the film is unfolding, so that the music sort of organically fits the action or whatever on the screen. So, and I think scoring wise, just for a bit of trivia, I think Star Trek Voyager was the last TV show that was scored. I think so. I think I remember hearing that. I don't think they score TV shows anymore, but Star Trek, like Next Generation and all that, was actually scored, if I remember correctly. But anyway, back to the Case of Evil and the music.
Yeah. So in our case, my plan had just been to grab a really old recording that was going to be within public domain, a classical piece, and use it in the film. And when I was talking to Carvin about doing the theremin stuff, and I was talking about my plan, he said, well, first of all, unless you could get a recording that's pre-1910, it's all still going to be in public domain. Or still not going to be in public domain. And so I said, okay, that's going to be a problem for us. And so he said, what I would like to do is, he said, but the composer you're talking about, Holst, he says, the music is in public domain. It's just the recordings that would not be. He says, but if I go back and if I re-record that myself, there's nobody has any claims on that recording. And so he actually said, I've got brass, I've got whatever. And so I said, well, here's the thing. I've got a couple of cousins that are actually string players. They play at my wife's and I's wedding. They teach string in Missouri. Would you be interested in having them assist? So it's kind of funny because my friend is currently living in New Zealand. My cousins are in Missouri, and he also called on some people that lived in Hong Kong. And so our soundtrack was recorded on about 3 or 4 different countries, with people basically coordinating over the internet. They would record their pieces, send it into Carvin. He would mix it in, add it into the mix. And another interesting bit of trivia about it is there is a piano that my friend had access to, which is the world's longest piano. It's 18 feet long.
What? 18 feet long?
It gives a rather ominous sound.
Yes.
How many keys does it have?
It's when I say long, just so if you think about it,
I understand. Okay.
Not the width of the keyboard.
I got you.
It's the length of the sound box for the piano. But it's basically about again half again longer than a concert grand piano.
Wow.
Anyway, so he has a picture of it, but it's there in New Zealand, but it actually holds the Guinness World Records as the longest piano in the world.
Well, very neat.
And that's why you see the odd name of the Missouri Pacific Orchestra in the credits, because there were people in Asia, New Zealand, and Missouri. And it was Neal's cousins, as you mentioned, that played at our wedding, and also they have pretty much grown-up children that helped with the playing too. So that was very nice to have a family connection.
Interesting. So I love the fact that you were trying to create as aesthetically accurate of a 30s Universal horror movie as you could, but you were using cutting edge internet technology to make it happen. I just love that irony, I guess, or whatever. I'll tell you what, we're going to go to a break. When we come back, I want to talk more about maybe the plot of the movie a little bit without giving anything away,
sure.
How people can find it. And I thought all week to come up with a hard-hitting radio journalism question to ask you about your movie. So I have a hard-hitting, incisive question that's going to get directly to the meat of the matter. When we come back, are you ready for my hard-hitting question? When we come back on Shane Plays Radio after the break, I've got my hard-hitting. Jana, are you okay with this? Can I ask this question when we come back?
Bring it. Yeah.
Okay, all right. You're going to love this. I put hours into this question. Okay, so let me throw out some love to the sponsor. We'll hit a break, and when we come back, we'll have more with Neal and Jana Hallford and their movie, The Case of Evil. So some goblins are your friends. Game Goblins is Central Arkansas's premier retailer of Magic the Gathering, Warhammer 40K, board games, card games, RPGs, miniatures, and hobby accessories. Call Game Goblins at 501-224-GAME or visit them online at gamegoblins.com. Conveniently located at 1121 South Bowman, right on the corner of Bowman and Canis in West Little Rock, and staffed by friendly employees, Game Goblins has expanded their store size, and there's plenty of room for exciting inventory and tables for play space. For all of your gaming needs, I heartily recommend Game Goblins. Make sure to check out their customer loyalty program that rewards you based on your actual purchases. Game Goblins earns your business and keeps it. First-time customers, mention Shane Plays and receive $10 off your purchase of $50 or more. Call Game Goblins at 501-224-GAME or visit them online at gamegoblins.com. Tell them Shane Plays sent you.
MegaWars.net. The classic online space strategy game has returned, bigger and better than ever before. Scout the universe and claim your empire. Construct, customize, and launch dozens of different starships. Battle thousands of opponents online in a team-based competition leading to the ultimate battle of the galaxies. Grab your slot today in one of the most hotly anticipated indie games of 2015. Visit megawars.net and get options only available during our pre-sale event running now. megawars.net.
The die is cast.
Plunge into worlds of fantastic adventure where dragons lie and the undead stalk the shades of your mind's imagines. Where creatures of legend plunder wealth through the horror of their passage. Monsters grim and foul hold the ecstasy of gold and the renown of glory. All this and more awaits you and your friends in the unlimited, fantastic world of the Castles and Crusades role-playing game from Trollord Games. Visit your friendly local game store or Trollord.com to get your copy today. A rules-light, adaptable game that has stood the test of time. 12 years in constant publication with no new additions, Castles and Crusades is the original easy-to-play attribute check system. Join us and unleash your imagination. Visit your friendly local game store or Trollord.com to get your copy of Castles and Crusades today. Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/Shane Plays.
And we're back with Shane Plays Radio, Geek Talk Radio, a journey into the things we love. I'm your host, Shane Stacks. Remember, you can always call the show at 501-823-0965 or tweet me at Shane Plays, SSHANEPLAYS. And as our sponsor, Chapman Service, was talking about springing into action, don't forget tonight we spring forward if you're in the United States. I think there's one or two states that don't do daylight savings time, but we spring forward tonight. So tonight's when you lose the hour. So sorry about that. I just report the facts. I don't make them. The other thing is, speaking of sponsors, in the very first break, there's a Mega Wars ad, and Neal, you produced that ad. I forgot to mention that. Yes. When it goes megawars.net or say however it goes when it kicks off.
Megawars.net.
Yeah. So you hear Neal every week on this show, whether you know it or not. So, all right. So we're talking with Neal and Jana Hallford with Swords and Circuitry Studios. About their award-winning short film, The Case of Evil. And I said before the break I had a hard-hitting, incisive journalistic question that I worked hours on. I wanted that one question that would get deep to the meat of everything and answer all questions about this movie. Neal and Jana, are you ready?
We're ready.
Zach, are you ready? Okay. So this week I watched the American version, which is different from the Japanese version, of the 1963 movie King Kong versus Godzilla. Mm-hmm. And there's a myth out there that it has two different endings. I actually threw this myth out there one time. It was incorrected. I threw a myth out that in the Japanese version, Godzilla wins. In the American version, King Kong wins. Actually, King Kong wins both. It's a myth. Mm-hmm. So here's my hard-hitting journalistic question.
Yes.
That will probably win a Pulitzer.
I'm sure it will.
Is The Case of Evil better than King Kong versus Godzilla?
Well,
what I have to say, King Kong versus Godzilla does not stand the test of time, and is in fact quite cheesy. But I love it as a bad movie. So now that I've thrown you that softball, Jana, is it better than King Kong versus Godzilla?
Well, I don't think you can really compare a short to a full-length movie anyway, but...
I love that she's answering it like it's a legitimate question.
But I'm glad to talk about Godzilla.
For the uninitiated, King Kong versus Godzilla is not a good movie. I love it because it's a cheesy Godzilla movie, but it's not a good movie. So anyway,
No.
yeah. So I wanted to get the reaction, and that was even better than I could possibly. Because she's like, well, she's trying to satisfy, the fans of Godzilla movies. So I love that.
My wife is nice and sweet and very very political, and then she wants to make sure that she doesn't offend anyone.
Well, also I have great affection for Godzilla, even if he's in a bad movie. So
yeah.
And I always think that Mrs. Godzilla must have been a very traditional Japanese wife because we never see her. But Godzilla does have a son, so she's somewhere.
Well, she's following about 10 miles behind.
Yeah, she's cleaning up the mess that he's creating. So, and I have
like Jane and myself.
Yeah, exactly. And poor the lovely Sheila, poor beleaguered lovely Sheila at home. If you're listening, yeah, she's always cleaning up my messes, even when I'm trying not to make one. But yeah, and I got to call bull stankies on King Kong versus Godzilla. There's no way that King Kong's going to beat Godzilla. That's all I got to say. And they did this, he gets hit by lightning, so he gets stronger, But we're going to get off that so that we can talk. Tell us, the Case of Evil, tell us about why is that title clever? Jana, why don't you take that one?
I'm going to let Jana answer that question.
Yeah.
She's actually the one that came up with the title.
Why is that title clever? I think it's incredibly clever.
Well, I like things that work more than one way, but we were trying to come up that we already had the script, but we were trying to name it. And Neal's original working title would have given away too much.
It was spoilery.
It was kind of, we realized his original concept was kind of a spoilery title.
What was the original title, if you don't mind me asking?
Something that fit the time. And so we were driving together and talking about creative stuff the way we often do. And so I just started listing possible titles. And when I came to The Case of Evil, Neal said he liked that, and we thought of a few more things, and then we went back to that. So I liked it because it was kind of open-ended. It didn't give away anything, but it did tie in with the object that's sought after.
Right.
So,
yeah, well, I don't want to give away we don't really want to give away the original title, what it was, because if
it will be okay. If people haven't seen it yet, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that wasn't the best forethought question I've ever had.
And so anyway, anyway, it would have kind of blown one of the big elements one of the sort of surprises that's in the film if we'd given it. So I'll tell you offline what it actually was. But
yeah, that's fine. Yeah, and when we're writing in the history books 20 years from now, talking about the difference that this film made in movies, then we can talk about that. I will say that most people, and including me, when you hear The Case of Evil, I'm expecting a noir gumshoe type thing, like a private detective working a case. And all I will say, without spoiling anything, that's not what's going on. So it's a very, very, very clever title. And, I want to ask real quick, and then I want y'all to tell people how they can find this movie. We're about to run out of time. How many? I know it's done several festivals and won some awards. How many festivals have you done, and what kind of awards have you gotten?
We toured 38 film festivals.
Wow.
And that was here in the United States, and then also we had a couple in Canada and also in Great Britain. And so I'm hoping maybe we might be able to pick up a few more this coming year. The hard part is most festivals won it within the past year. And so, but there are a few people we may still be able to get in under the radar with. Also, that might be of interest to some of your listeners is that some of the conventions or some of the places we played, we also played at Dragon Con and at Gen Con last year.
Oh, nice. All right.
And so, anyway, so we're hoping maybe to get into Austin and a few other places that we weren't able to get into this last year. And we're also hoping to maybe look at getting into some places like the ale, what they call it, that's down in Texas, and they have them everywhere. Tarantino owns the place, and I'm drawing a complete blank on it now.
Yeah, I'm not familiar, but let me ask you real quick, just because. Okay,
Draft
yeah.
House.
Oh, okay,
Alamo
cool.
Draft House.
All right, so and it's won some awards. I want to real quick. We're running out of time. How can people find this movie? How can they watch it?
Go to thecaseofevil.com. There's a link on the right-hand side. It's about the second or third kind of video thing down on the right-hand side, and you'll see there's a link where you can go and you can rent it online. For those of you that are listening today and for the next week, if you put in the following discount code, XCPCVPHC, that will give you a half-off discount on renting it for the next week.
Okay, I'll add that to the show notes. Can you send me an email with that? And or a Facebook message, and I'll make sure to add that to the show notes. Listen, thanks so much for coming on, Neal and Jana. I really appreciate it. Gonna have to run. Time is a predator that stalks us all our lives. It's always, the radio goes so quick. I hope you keep doing cool stuff like this. Folks, go watch this. Support it. Support indie film. They're doing this because they love it, but there's a business aspect behind it. This stuff, just like this radio show, it takes resources to do it. Neal, Jana, thanks so much for being on. I'm going to have to run. Folks, tweet of the week, once again, 2 weeks in a row, is from Out of Context D&D. The second room is unremarkable, except that it is on fire. Next week, Michael Tierney, comic book industry expert and creator, publisher of The Wild Stars. Don't forget we can be found on Krypton Radio, a week delayed. KryptonRadio.com is sci-fi for your Wi-Fi. And don't forget about our Patreon, and you can catch us as a podcast. Bye, Neal. Bye, Jana. Say bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you all so much. I am out on Shane Plays Radio.